Because there's a handful of people actually run everything. That's true. It's provable. Not
it's all about control. To them we just cattle, numbers, battling each other while they creeping in the shadows, scheming, plotting, clocking your every move, locked in your mind, brainwashed until it's rocking. Got the population operating as they want them, symbolically mocking them, thinking nothing can stop them. So open your eyes to the lies of the evil, the poison in the minds and the lives of your people. And every time they lead you down a line to deceive you, and by then it's always too late to see through the veil that they hide behind, cause your third eye is blind. Better take a stand, we running out of time. Ain't nobody coming to save us, fuck what you had in mind. Arm yourself with the truth and jump behind the battle line. Can we turn it around? Yeah, it's possible. Divided we'll all fall, but united we're unstoppable. This is for the world, this is for the masses, attached to the strings being pulled by puppet masters. This is for the youth, searching for the proof, keep on looking for the clues, I'll provide you with some truth. This is for the ones waking up from the spell, beginning to discover themselves. Yeah, this is for the youth, searching for the truth, keep on looking for the clues, I'll provide you with some proof. Hey yo, the stage is set, the game is rigged, the system isn't broken, it was designed this way, and only the blind obey, give their mind away to these political, parasitical, cynical, criminal-minded individuals, getting you to surrender your freedoms to the hands of the state, with every boogeyman they create, playing they order out of chaos in order to enslave us, distorted our brains to morally degrade us, faces off against each other while they move the pieces on the global chessboard, directing the hordes. I don't come to bring peace, I was sent with a sword, a truth to get you mentally ready for war. Step forth if you got the balls to call out these tyrants, or submit your compliance through silence, cause in this filthy system ain't a single soul to trust. It ain't right versus left, it's a state versus us. This is for the world, this is for the masses, attached to the strings being pulled by puppet masters. This is for the youth, searching for the proof, keep on looking for the clues, I'll provide you with some truth. This is for the ones waking up from the spell, beginning to discover themselves. Yeah, this is for the youth, searching for the truth, keep on looking for the clues, I'll provide you with some proof. This is for the world. Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. I'm your host, James Cordiner. My website is freeyourmindne.com. We got a show lined up tonight. Boy, I've been waiting a long time for this one, and I really, really am excited. So as you know by now, by watching the intro video, the guest tonight is Mark Passio, and we're going to be discussing how important it is to speak the truth, no matter the cost. Before we get to that, though, I do have 2 orders of housekeeping to do. So we're going to do that now. First order of business here, I would like to help Will Keller and the boys over at the Freedom Under Natural Law conference. The Funnel 2 conference is going to be happening on September 10th and 11th. 2022. This year, this time around, it's going to be called Convergence, Unity, Focus, Action. A huge lineup of speakers. No lack of talent here. So go to freedomundernaturallaw.com to learn more. The Natural Freedom League is not going to be streaming tonight. So I really wanted to make sure that I did my part, make sure that you guys all heard about this conference out there. So now we're going to talk about a little bit about Shattering the Illusion. It's a 1-day online event about natural law, true anarchy, consciousness, mind control, and the occult. It's going to be on September 24th, 2022. Got a heck of a lineup for this one as well. Chris Jansen, Ivan Oyola Jr., myself, James Cordiner, Jennifer Rose, Joe Murray, Mark Devlin, Mark Passio, Nathan Redette, Sean McCann, and Will Keller. We're going to be featuring a brand new song by Diesel Automatic and Joe Murray. They're teaming up. They're coming up with a song. They're writing it, collaborating, and it's going to be kick-ass. If you want to learn more about this conference, go to shatteringtheillusion.info to learn more. Go to the speakers page. If you find a speaker that you like, you want to learn more about them based on their topic that they're going to be presenting on, click on their picture and, off you'll go right to their website, and you'll be able to check out the rest of the content that they create and what they're all about. So with that being said, that does it for our housekeeping. And we're going to come back over here. And so now we're going to bring in Mark Passio. Hello, Mark. How's it going, dude?
James, thanks for having me on the show. I'm doing well. Glad to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here, man. Like I said, I really have been waiting for a long time to talk to you. Before we begin, I actually have something that I wrote down earlier today that I'd like to read to you. Would that be okay?
Sure, go right ahead.
All right. Well, it's kind of a little bit of a letter to you that I wanted to make sure I wrote it down to get it straight. So, well, when I first heard you speak, I thought you were going to be just an angry man shouting into a microphone about how taxes and cops are bad, and I kept listening. And what I eventually caught on to, even though through the years of time that your show has taken place, you seem to have grown increasingly bitter, I caught on to that you really just want to help people, that you truly care about people. And you showed this by accusing people of being lazy. You would accuse people of hating themselves. You would accuse people of not taking responsibility for their actions. You would accuse people of staying ignorant, willfully ignorant. And I cannot tell you the amount of times that I sat there hearing you speak and feeling as though you were talking directly to me. And since the time I began to listen to you speak, I've also met many others that have also kicked my ass into gear. They knew who they are. And now you know that you are also one of them. So thank you very, very much, man. A lot of what you have done, the work that you have put out, has really helped me save my own life. And it's helped me change myself so I could be an effective agent of change in the world around me. And it's really, really helped me become the better person that I could have always been for myself, for my family, and for, the others in my surroundings. And although we've never met in real life, it is important that I at least say this to you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. And I love you, man. Because
James, thank you so much for that, man. I mean, that's a powerful testimonial, to the work that I've put out. And, while my work can certainly be harsh to some people's ears, I'm glad that it lit a fire under you and inspired you. And I'm glad that you took that ball and ran with it. And that made for betterment in your personal life. And now you are serving the truth to others. So thank you so much. I can't ask for any better of a compliment to my work that I've been doing over the last 15 years or so. And I'm glad that that helped you out, and now you're putting that work forward to help others. That's what this is all about.
Yep, it is. It's like you said back in the day, which was a Wednesday, by the way. Got that joke from Ivan. When you start learning these things, you have a moral obligation to put it back out, to speak it back out to others. And, I wanted to talk to you about speaking the truth, no matter the cost, because this is not something that you're unfamiliar with. And there's really no one else that could really convey to people better than you the just absolute importance of using the voice, using that to speak truth, because I hear you say all the time, the first step of initiation is to stop lying, of course, to yourself and other people too. So what do you experience in your life? If we can, get inside Mark Passio's head a little bit more, what do you experience in your life with people when you really do start speaking truth to them and you don't back down? What goes on?
I guess it depends on where they're at in their own consciousness, how much they've become aware of, how much work they've done upon themselves. to change for the better, how, not lazy they've been in doing private, personal work to recognize what's going on around them and to break former destructive patterns and to break patterns of ignorance. So there's a spectrum of responses, I guess you could say. There's a gradient. And for the people who have done a lot of that work, they're obviously going to be much less resistant to hearing truth, even though it may be disturbing, even though it may be uncomfortable, because they have a framework, they have a basic existing perspective from which to operate from, because they've looked into it a little bit. What they're hearing is not completely foreign or alien to them. And for people like that, we're generally speaking a similar language, although it may not be exactly identical, and there's room for communication, so in general, that'll go pretty well. It'll go smoothly. People will have a back and forth discussion. They'll hear what's being said. They'll respond to it. And we can have a true conversation, right? Which, you break that down. I always talk about the importance of breaking down words into their origin, where they came from, right? The word conversation literally means to change together. If you go back to its etymological origins, the prefix con in Latin meaning together or with, and the verb versare in Latin, conversare, conversation. Versare is the verb to change. And that's what a conversation should do. It should help both parties to change for the better, because there's a back and forth of information. They can learn and grow from the discussion. Now, again, that's the first part of it. That's for people who have a little bit of an existing framework to operate from. Now, where you see combativeness, where you see resistance, where you even see belligerence, is where you're talking to someone who hasn't done any homework. They haven't done any work upon themselves. So they're coming from a perspective of literally pure ignorance, where they don't know much about what's truly going on in the world. They have a preconceived belief system that's been fed to them from social engineers their entire life about how the world operates. And it's it's an extremely naive perspective. It's an extremely childish perspective. It's an extremely uninformed, low information density, is what I generally call it. It's that person is low information, and the information that they do or had received, or that they are operating on the basis of, it came from sources that are attempting to establish negative propaganda and keep people in a state of mind control. And when you are talking to a person like that, the essence of the being is shadowed and covered over. It's not truly, really, really there, and that can sound, very condescending when people hear it, but it's in fact really true. You're talking to people who have not led a self-examined existence. They haven't even, I hear from, let's say, people who didn't really look into much of what I talk about, never watched any of the information that I put forward, or other researchers, sometimes even members of my own family, will basically say, I can't really even understand what you're talking about. I can't truly hear it and receive it. You lose me very, very quickly, because they've only been operating from that limited perspective and that low information density perspective their entire lives. And they'll say to me things like, I never thought of what you just asked me to think about 1 second of my entire existence. It never occurred to me. I never even thought of thinking about that at all. And that's where a conversation becomes exceedingly difficult. That's where changing together is virtually impossible. It can be done, but it's exceedingly difficult to operate from, that lack of a framework, lack of perspective, lack of understanding. And you literally have to build little building blocks at a time. For example, somebody might hear you say something from the past, and you have to leave that as almost a little nugget of the truth, a little, putting the seed in the ground and watering it a little bit, and then revisit another time, because you're only going to be able to get them so far, make a little bit of a nudge in consciousness, and then come back and revisit it. And then I've noticed that you get sometimes some improvement if the person is being honest with themselves, if the person is actually looking at some information, at least if they're not like totally closing themselves off. And then they'll come back and they'll say, that thing that you said, I remembered that you said it, and I kind of understand it a little bit more now. Then you can give them some more and get them up to a little bit higher of a level of understanding. And it's very, very, very painstaking. It's very, very, very slow. It's obviously far too slow for the change that we really need to see to make a marked improvement in our world to avert what is going to be tantamount to catastrophe. We are generally out of time. And, if people don't do the great work, if they don't do the, speaking the voice of truth to other people in earnest now, at this time, this is the opportunity. This is the time. If they don't do it now, there's not going to be many more opportunities in the distant future. We have probably, I'd say, a few years, if that, to turn this large ship of the world around in a different direction. And that's going to take an unimaginably colossal effort on the part of even the semi-conscious, let alone the very conscious. It's going to take an unbelievably colossal effort from where we're at. And when we talk about, as a theme for this entire interview, the concept of speaking the truth out into the world, I ask people on my radio, on my, internet television broadcasts, my podcasts, I ask them, simply consider how many voices of the lies, of deception, of mind control, of social engineering are continuously putting that message out into the public sphere, into the public consideration for their mental influence that they are attempting to put people under. Imagine how many people are signed up to do that, to speak untruths, to speak lies and manipulations and deceits out into the world for other people to grab on and cling on to. How many lies would you imagine are publicly broadcast just in one day throughout the entire world? Let's consider that as like a power source, right? If you were like plugging in that, if that represents energy that's going out into the world as a power source, and you're plugging into that dynamic, how many voices of lies, deceit, and propaganda and untruth and misinformation are out there in the world? And put that all together and consider how much energy that represents and how many minds that's influencing on a daily basis, just broadcasting out into the field of energy, and minds are receiving it and latching on to all of those lies and methods of deceit and deception. Calculate, try to just imagine that, right? And just imagine that magnitude of what that represents energetically and work-wise. How many people have to be doing that great dark work, okay?
Yeah.
And then compare it to the voice of reason and truth philosophy and morality and real understanding of the world. And then calculate that effort. Try to imagine how many people are truly making the effort to really analyze the dynamics of what's going on and truly put forth a solution that really will turn it around from a moral perspective. And then ask yourself the question, which one is more powerful energetically? And I think if we're being honest with ourselves, which again, as you just spoke, was the very first step of initiation into the world of hidden information, hidden knowledge, and bettering the world is you have to tell yourself the truth. You can't lie to yourself because you want to hear the nice thing. Of course, we all want to hear it's all going our way. It's all going to work out in the end. Good always wins. You know, the forces of good got this, right?
Right.
I think that has been a perspective that, again, has kept humanity very naive. It has kept humanity lazy. Because if people think in their minds, good has this, and it's an assured thing, and we're going to win, and we're winning, and you don't have to get up off your ass and get involved. It's just a sure thing because good always wins. That is actually doing a disservice to humanity, trying to get people to think that way. What would be of service to humanity is telling the truth about where we are really at, right? Tell the truth unapologetically about where we're at, and don't sugarcoat it, and don't imagine that it's some other way than it really is. And people, I find, even in the truth movement, even in the freedom movement, so-called, have a very difficult time doing that because they want to believe good's going to win. They want to believe they're not only on the good side, the good team, but that side's going to win. And that's not an assured outcome. That it hasn't been for many, 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 many human beings who have lived on this planet over countless generations that have come before us. You know, evil has defeated cultures. Evil has destroyed cultures. Evil has tortured human beings and ended civilizations and come out on top in the past. We only need a simplistic view of human history, let alone a deep understanding of it, to understand this, if we're being honest, right? If we're not sugarcoating it and we're not BSing ourselves and BSing people around us, right? And this is all I ask people to do. And it's a very different approach that they really haven't really truly fundamentally heard in their lives, right? Because they're hearing all the voices of lies, deceit, deception, and sugarcoating simultaneously. But what they haven't heard is start with an honest assessment of where we are at. Don't start with a doom and gloom perspective that it's all hopeless and it can never be solved, that we can never win this thing. You might as well go lay down in bed, don't eat, and die. if that's your perspective, okay? I'm not a doomer. A lot of people will insist that I am, but I'm not. I'm a very intense realist, okay? Doomers are people that are like, you're never going to win, don't even bother to try. I've never told people that ever one day in my life. I've told people, be honest with yourself and others. Accurately and logically assess the situation that we are truly in and start from there. Start from that point. Because if you don't have an accurate point of origin, you know you want to go someplace else, you can't set navigational coordinates. You don't know how to get from point A to point B because you don't know where point A is. Even if you have a vague understanding of where your destination is, if you don't know your origin point, you have no means of setting a course. And that's been my advice to people since day one regarding speaking the truth, is don't sugarcoat it. Start from what you know to be true now about the actual situation, right? Don't over darken it, right? Don't make people think, hey, your effort will be wasted, so why bother to start? That's untrue. You don't know we don't know definitively what's going to happen, right? But if we stay on the course that we're on, then we can extrapolate what will happen. With no change in course, we can extrapolate the destination that we will end up at. That's very logical to conclude. And this is where I'm coming from. This is where I think people don't quite understand my perspective on speaking of the truth, because I'm not saying it's all wrapped up and it's a done deal and good wins in the end. That's untrue. I'm also not saying evil is assured to win because they've been so powerful and they're assured to defeat us and we have no chance. I don't take either of those perspectives. I take a perspective of, if willpower is activated and put into action in mass, anything is possible. That represents infinite possibility. And then we can set course wherever we want to go. That's the good news in all of this. This is what I keep trying to explain to people, is I'm not giving anybody a doomed perspective. I'm actually saying something that is very positive. It's good news. It means all we have to do is get up off of our, up till now, lazy butts, activate ourselves, and then it is possible to change the outcome of where we're headed. If we don't do that, if we decide not to do that thing, then we are going to continue on the trajectory that we're going down. Because the way that the universe gives us the result of what we've put out into the world is very computer-like. And a lot of people don't want to hear that either. A lot of people think that's a negative perspective. No, it isn't. Anybody that has dealt with computers, has dealt with software, has dealt with programming, etc., any level of coding, knows that if you structure something well, you put effort into it, you put willpower into improving it, then you're going to get positive outcome on the other side. This is how the real laws of attraction work. This is just how willpower and work in the world works to give us the result that we put into it. When a room is dirty and it's an absolute nightmarish mess, and if you don't look at the room and say, I have to make an honest assessment of the room, here's what I'm going to need to clean it, this is about the amount of time it's going to take, this is how much work and effort it's going to take this much energy of myself and whoever else may be helping me, then we're going to sit and actually do that work with the cleaning materials that we have to put together and assemble. If you do that, then the result shows itself after you're done cleaning the room and you have an orderly place. If you don't do it, you have no right to complain that the room is still dirty because you just didn't do the work. It's like A plus B equals C. 1 plus 2 equals 3. It's a very logical thing. It's not personal. The universe is giving you exactly what you put into the equation, and then you get the result, and you got to lay down in the bed that you made. It's almost so simple that when you explain it, it's like, this shouldn't need to be explained. This is should be common everyday sense, but it's not, because people have been conditioned since the day that they were born that either it's hopeless, don't bother to try, or it'll just work itself out and it'll just fix itself without effort, without real work. Neither of those perspectives is true. And you have to approach it from a realistic perspective. The universe operates similar to a computer. I'm not saying it is specifically a computer, but it operates according to similar principles where if you code well, you get a proper result on the screen or in the printout or on the internet. If you code poorly, you get a poor result. And who is to blame, quote unquote? Who is responsible? The person putting the effort in or not putting the effort in, right? So we have to ask ourselves the question, are we putting the effort in truly? Or are we sitting back watching passively like a movie? See, this is the brainwashing. Hollywood propaganda, social engineering, the New Age movement, and religion. It tells us we can sit back and watch like passive observers. And then we're just watching it go by. Just be the observer. Just observe, right? No, you have to be the participant. You have to use your willpower to make change happen in the world. That's the sacred masculine principle. You got to care enough inside your heart-based intelligence, okay, to have the correct intent to want to improve the world for the better and improve morality, then you have to use the masculine principle of willpower to actually make it happen. It doesn't happen. It's not an automated process. It doesn't happen by itself. We have to make that change happen through our actions, through our behaviors.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just turn this up a bit. So it seems like it's like in order to like the healing starts with the speech, and all of the other, it almost seems like it's the first step, right? Just like how the first step of occult initiation is to stop lying to yourself, and to essentially start telling the truth to other people as well. It seems like that the rest of the problems can kind of be easier to solve once we start speaking the truth to one another. And so when somebody's stealing your property, or trying to rape you, or assault you or whatever, part of speaking the truth is standing up and saying no, standing up for yourself, knowing the truth, and not letting people transgress upon you and act violently toward you, and being able to tell people the truth about even institutions like the government being violent, and saying, hey, no, that's wrong, and being able to talk to people about that and to convince them, and to see to get the people that you're talking to see through the bullshit, and to understand it. So if you're telling the truth, and then it should be easier. Something that you were saying brought to mind that human beings, we have this weird ability to overcomplicate extremely simple situations, as if we need it to be complicated, that we need a problem to solve, when the problem, even right now today, is very, very simple to understand. No way. And people's response is, no way can it be that simple. No way. They need to overcomplicate it. And it's like, no, you want to just grab them, say, pump the brakes, please listen. It's not that complicated. It's very, very simple. There's a small group of people that are sitting in a building over there, and they think that they can control all of the rest of us. And that is wrong. They don't have the right to do that. And they're like, well, no, they do. No, and then you go through the motions, and it's very, very complicated to understand, even though it's so simple. It's, in my own personal experience, there are people that have very vicious reactions to this, to these things, and they think that it's impossible. They think it's a joke. I start talking to them about objective morality, and how that is literally the master key. You start doing that, and there is no excuse left over to have these psychopaths who seek to control everything that we do. There is no excuse to have these people. You start acting right, and all the excuses for these people, all the dependency issues that we have, well, maybe not you and I, but the vast majority of people, that kind of they have these dependency issues, and the government are the people that take care of them, and wrap that in quotes. And with objective morality, it's like that's the healing factor of these dependency issues. You start acting right. You start telling the truth. Stop fucking around with people and screwing people over every day of your life. You see how quick, we will clean up the mess. We will be the ones to clean up the mess, but it will, at the same time, as I'm talking about it right now, it kind of seems like during that cleanup period, it'll feel like it's cleaning itself up, but we're actually the ones doing it. It's just
from a change in perspective. It's
right.
A change in mental perspective first that has to be internal.
Yeah.
That's why, the tagline for my show is ending slavery one mind at a time. There's so many ways that we can explore that, because it is about the voice, right? This is our topic for the night, is speaking the truth, right?
Yeah.
I say in my broadcasts, the universe is spoken into existence. Our experience of life is created by thought and voice. And this is in every creation tradition in any mythos of religion or spirituality, basically throughout human history, it all comes down to thought form and then speaking. Look at the Genesis story. The creator speaks, let there be light, is the first thing that happens. Okay. Bringing it forward through the power of voice, right? And then the two processes again that we talked about, the sacred feminine and sacred masculine, you could look at those as internal and external perspectives, right? So the internal voice is the one that we have to use to tell ourselves the truth and not lie to ourselves anymore, right? So these concepts are really, really fleshed out and brought forward even symbolically through occult traditions as well. I could liken it to the tradition of Kabbalah that I've talked about on my podcast series. And we could talk about, in the tree of life, there's the two pillars on both sides of the tree, the pillar of severity and the pillar of mercy, right? The pillar of severity, Geburah, represents that internal voice. Those spheres on the tree of life, symbolically in the Kabbalistic tradition, represent the throat chakra, the place of energy of the voice, of speaking and speech to oneself and to others, right? So Geburah, or the severity Sephirah, is it's called severity because you are supposed to be severe when telling yourself the truth and how you have been lying to yourself, right? That's why it's on that left-hand side, and it's considered, the pillar of severity, as it is called. On the right-hand side, that represents telling the truth to other people. That's the pillar of mercy. It's saying, be somewhat merciful, attempt to understand other people's perspectives and what they have been through in their lives when you go and tell them, right? And yes, that should be approached that way. I'd say, at least initially, when the person will refuse to stop lying to themselves, I think we do have to start using a slightly heavier hand, because they are basically not telling themselves the truth about whether the behavior that they are condoning or even doing themselves is immoral, because they want the result. As you were saying, people that condone government, they condone violence. They don't see it as violence. Okay. No. They don't apply the behavior to themselves, and they don't tell themselves what they're condoning. They lie to themselves about that. They fudge the data so that they euphemize it to themselves so that they come out squeaky clean. Okay. When in fact their hands are covered in blood. Okay. And that's where we have to use that throat chakra energy to tell the truth to ourselves first. That's the first step. We have to stop lying to ourselves and be honest with ourselves about what the behavior in question really is, right? Mm-hmm. So if, for example, let's say someone advocates, because of whatever health crisis you could possibly imagine, forced vaccination upon other individuals. Let's say, I consider this a public health crisis, and I think everybody should be made to take this. Well, what are you actually advocating? You are advocating that someone else has the right to put a substance into someone else's body, even if the person who owns that body does not agree that they want the substance into their body. So then what someone who advocates for that has to say to themselves is, first, what is that behavior? Number one, before you go anywhere else, analyze the behavior in question and be honest about what it is, right? Don't euphemize anything along the way, anything in the process. Do not euphemize it. Say what it really is. Then the second thing that they have to do is say what they condone that they would do to another person who refuses, or what they would condone for a third party to do to a person who refuses. So let's say someone says, I think everybody should be mandated to take a vaccine. Okay. Well, what is that mandate? What is the behavior? The behavior is saying the free will choice of a being to say, I do not want a substance placed into my vehicle of consciousness, my body. See, the word my is possessive. That's a possessive adjective. Okay. It implies ownership. It implies property. By saying my body, I am making an accurate claim of property because I have this body, I am using this body, and I am responsible for the well-being of this body. Therefore, I get to decide what is placed into it. Just like if you own a computer, I have the computer rightfully. I've acquired it. I didn't steal it. Okay. I decide how it is used, and I am responsible for its maintenance and upkeep, and I'm responsible for what software goes into it. That's why it's my property. See, property has characteristics, right? And this is what people aren't explaining through the power of the voice to help people gain the understanding of objective morality, because it all comes down to property, all of it, because everything that can be done against morality, anything that any action that can be done by a human being that is immoral is a violation of property. It's theft, right? We boil all the transgressions against natural law: murder, assault, rape, theft, trespass, coercion, and deception. All 7 of the true deadly sins of this world that anyone can do to another being are forms of theft. When we analyze them each in turn: murder, theft of life without right; assault, theft of well-being without right. You can go on down to deception, taking someone's right to have accurate information, and make informed decisions. Okay. Self-ownership comes under this property right. Okay. If you own your body, then it's your property. No one can tell you what to do with the body. No one can tell you what goes into it, unless you're actively, physically harming or defrauding someone else, which refusal to put a substance in the body is not doing. That is not one of the wrongdoings. So people will say, I think the free will choice of another being not to have something placed into their body should be removed from that being. What is the free will choice of what you are permitted to do with your body outside of direct harm and defrauding of someone else? Is the removal of that called? That is making a claim of ownership on the body of the other individual. Making a claim of ownership on another person's body by saying, I'm going to decide what you may put into it and what you may not put, or even what you may not put into it. That's called prohibition, right? But commanding what must be put into it, which is called mandates of substances, okay, that someone may not want be put into their body, is making a direct claim of ownership on that bodily vehicle. Now, what is the definition? What is the word for this definition? One being or a group of beings making the claim of ownership upon the body of another being or group of beings. What is that the definition of? That is called slavery. That is the actual definition of slavery, whether it is overt slavery, whether it is covert slavery, meaning if it's out in the open, ball and shackle, I own your body, you're going to perform the work that I say you're going to perform, or I'll kill you, slavery, or whether it's covert slavery, I'm going to subject you to endless propaganda and mind control and social engineering and false forms of media and false forms of education that are really indoctrination until I convince you that I have a higher claim to your body than you yourself. That's covert slavery, which is what government and social engineering actually is. So that's number one of what people have to do with their internal voice. Then with their external voice, do this. Say out in the open what you would advocate to be done to someone who refuses dictates, to someone who refuses mandates, and then hear yourself. Listen back to what you say. Actually make the statement publicly. Don't lie. Be honest about what you say you want done. So, someone will say, well, I think if they refuse, someone should come to their property with whatever amount of force is necessary to hold them down and force the substance into their body. And then they'll say that, and they cannot make the recognition because of how brainwashed a state that they are actually in, that is actually taking away someone's free will rights as a being, and that is called slavery. It's not just violence, it's violent behavior, but it goes beyond violent behavior. It is the act of putting someone in direct bodily subjugation to another, and that is the condition under any definition you want to imagine it called slavery. And this is the thing that we have to speak about and raise more awareness and attention to, that what we really are in the so-called anarchist movement, in the so-called movement to help educate people as to what natural law is and what objective morality is ultimately we are abolitionists. We are those who stand against all forms of slavery, overt and covert, both forms of the worlds of slavery, because there are two forms. There is overt slavery, where it can readily be seen, and the violence can readily be seen. And there is covert slavery that uses mental manipulation and deception to get people to euphemize the violence that is inherent to covert slavery, and tells them, no, it's not actual violence and slavery. That is harsher definitions and harsher language than what it really is. No, they're euphemizing the language, and it actually is slavery, and they've just been conditioned to think of it as not being slavery because of mental manipulation, mind control. Okay, so this is the two aspects of the voice that have to be applied. It's an internal aspect first, then it's an external aspect second. Be honest with yourself about what the actual behavior is. Then say publicly what you advocate. And I myself recognize the inherent violence in the behavior, and therefore I say publicly, I don't advocate that that be done by any individual. I understand. I know definitively that the performance of such a behavior is violence and is not a right. It doesn't fall under what a human right is, a behavior that does not initiate harm to another sentient being. That behavior does initiate harm to another sentient being because it is the form of theft that thieves free will, bodily autonomy, and the right to remain unharmed and not be subjugated and enslaved. And that's called being honest with yourself about the behavior, and then being honest with others about whether you would advocate that behavior to be done or not. And this is the discussion that humanity, as an aggregate body of beings, isn't having. We're not having that philosophical discussion, unfortunately. That's why we're still enslaved, because people don't know what rights are. They don't know which behaviors are violent and which are rights. They don't understand that what they're advocating is violence and slavery. And then in the next breath, they'll say, but I'm a moral person. I'm a good person. No, that's not the definition of what a good person is or does, the advocacy of violence and the advocacy of slavery. Good people don't do that. Bad people do that. Immoral people do that, who don't care about the difference between right and wrong.
Amen. Yeah. So it's like so we're talking about, good versus bad people. So it brings to mind the principle of vibration, where it also acts with the principle of polarity as well. So good and bad exists on like a scale, and vibration, high vibration, you're a good person if you're operating at a high vibration. Speaking truth, it enables you to get there, to that high vibrational energy of consciousness. It enables you to do that and to actually help others get there as well, because you are combating that transgression of deception, and you're helping people, really, as harsh as it is, and as much as they want to turn away from it. The truth, we all know how the saying goes, knowing the truth will make you free. It is the direct path to a state of freedom, starting by speaking out the truth, no matter how harsh it could be. It will raise your consciousness to a higher vibration, and it'll make you a good person. You take everything I just said, do the opposite, and boom, just like Mark said, bad person. You're a bad person.
And that's that brings to mind the importance of being correct, right?
Yeah,
it's like, yes, there is true and there is untrue.
Well, how are you going to know if you're speaking the truth if you're incorrect?
That's right.
If you're incorrect, you're not speaking the truth. You have to be correct. You have to be right. You have to act right.
And if we're not taught the methodologies to be correct, how do we know whether we're correct or not? See, these are questions. Not only are they epistemological questions about reality and what is reality and what is true or not, but then I'm sorry, that's ontological, right? Ontology is the study of reality. But then we get into the epistemological realm of how do you actually determine what is true and correct versus what is false, what is illusion, right? This is what's so critical to understand. And that's what real education prepares someone to do. It puts the tool sets in their hands to be able to dissect any given body of information and come down to a breakdown and an understanding of whether it is true or not, and to understand it and then put it into action. If we don't have that tool set, we're not going to be correct, right? I reemphasize over and over, correct and moral, meaning the words that we choose to represent them. The one word that unites those is the word right, right? Right means both correct, meaning you got the answer right. You got it correct. You did not get the incorrect answer. You got the correct answer when you analyze this situation. And also moral versus immoral, meaning right versus wrong. We use the word right. That is the unity. That is what unites these two things. Being correct versus being morally right. They are actually one and the same, right? We think of them as not necessarily being the same, but that's the entire crux of the matter, is that you cannot align your behavior to what is morally right until you become factually right. This is why the postmodern world is so dangerous. It's so evil. Solipsism is evil. Postmodernism is evil. Okay? Believing that there is no such thing as the truth is evil. Moral relativism is evil. Okay? Yeah. Because if you're saying there is no correct or incorrect answer, it's all a matter of opinion, then you're saying you can't become factually right. And if you can't become factually right about anything, you can't become morally right about anything, because you can't get the answer correct about what is moral and immoral. Okay. And that is why the tool set has to be put into young people's hands at an early age of how do you analyze a situation? Forget telling them what to think. Give them the tools to learn how to come to the correct answer. That's the trivium. That's the true ancient method of education and real learning, and the real scientific methodology of grammar, logic, rhetoric, or in the ancient world, it was simply knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. gathering the data, using logical transforms to come to an understanding of what it all means, and then using it in the correct moral capacity to do the right thing in the world. That's true wisdom. If people aren't given those tool sets and they accept dangerous, evil religions such as postmodernism, solipsism, moral relativism, they can never become truly correct about which behaviors are moral versus which behaviors are immoral. And they will always be incorrect regarding those things, at least a lot of the time.
Yeah.
They may fall into being correct accidentally some of the time. But most of the time, they're just going to be incorrect, and they're never going to truly know right from wrong. And unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. This is the confused world where people not only don't know the difference between right and wrong, they aren't correct about the difference between right and wrong. And most people, unfortunately, don't care about the difference between right and wrong. They only care about the one God that they serve, and that's money, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's so true, man. Like the aspect of care that's completely dead, and like that's where it really all begins. So we can talk about speaking the truth until we're blue in the face, but really, guys, like everyone listening, where it really begins is care. How are you? Like if you don't care, then you're not going to speak the truth.
Right.
You got to care about the outcome. You have to care about the reality that we're living in. If you find it, Marcus said it in the past, I'll repeat what he said. Sure. If you find a way to get out of this reality, let me know. I'll be the first one to go, but that doesn't exist. So we need to, get real with what's going on in our world.
What happens here matters.
It does, absolutely
not a realm
does.
That nothing matters. Things matter that happen here. We're here for a reason. We're here to learn, to grow, and to try to leave a positive impression and a positive inspiration in the world after we're gone, so that other people learn and don't make the same mistakes that were made in the human past. And unfortunately, the last many generations of humanity really badly dropped the ball. Let's be honest. It's up to like our generations to heal this whole problem, or we're going to face cataclysm. And I'm not even saying necessarily a natural cataclysm. We could face a man-made cataclysm. It's happened in the past. There's no guarantee that won't happen again.
I think it's happening right now, to be honest.
We're in the middle of it. Yeah, absolutely. We're in the middle of a controlled collapse. It hasn't gone into quite free fall yet, but it's getting there. It's getting there. And, that's going to mean mass death, like mass casualty, mass death, much more mass trauma. And that trauma is not going to lead people to really necessarily want to pay attention. It's going to put them into survival mode. It could be a much worse state than the opportunity we still have. That's why I'm saying this opportunity should not be squandered. We have to take it very seriously. I analyze symbolism all the time, right? I've talked about, again, occult traditions like Kabbalah and Freemasonry and Tarot, and analyze that powerful symbolism in many of those traditions. One of the things in Freemasonry, I have gotten into a lot of the things that the symbolism in that tradition means, but that G in the middle of the compasses and square means gravitas in Latin, in one of the interpretations, right? And it can have many interpretations. It can mean, as I've said, the generative principle of care that we're talking about right now, right? It could mean gnosis, which is about knowledge, gathering all the information to make sure you get the answer correct. But it's also gravitas, which means in the Latin language, heavy importance, true great importance that should not be overlooked. This is a matter of gravitas, right? So it means take it seriously. Gravitas means seriousness. Not everything is a matter of making a joke about it or laughing. Things can happen that are going to be extremely serious to people when lives are going to be on the line. It's going to be a matter of life and death. People aren't going to be laughing and making jokes about it, making memes about it when they're dying. So, that G in the middle of the compass is in square also represents the word gravitas in Latin, which means incredible importance, weight when it comes to seriousness, not physical weight per se, but very serious matter of importance that should be paid correct attention to, that should really be focused upon, right? Again, that's a big, theme coming up in the funnel conference, the Freedom Under Natural Law conference. It's about focus. It's about really paying attention to what's truly important. This is what we have to steer people back toward doing, realizing that the only true matter of grave fundamental importance is, does a person truly know what rights are? Does a person truly know the difference between right and wrong behavior? Or are they confused regarding it, which is a very serious matter and shouldn't be overlooked. And think about how sad of a state that is, that people on our planet grow up into physical adulthood, biological adulthood, never truly having even considered or having been taught the true difference between right behavior and wrong behavior. That is not just sad. That is a matter of cosmic importance, because that not being done on a planet is a cosmic crime in the universe. That's how serious of a matter it is. That's cosmic weight, cosmic crime is what's being done on our planet. That we are not educating our children to understand right from wrong, and they are growing into biological adults still in complete confusion and ignorance regarding right and wrong.
Yeah. I had a conversation with my 5-year-old son today about the difference between right and wrong. This is how early we've started earlier. All right.
Sure.
I started, a couple years ago, really, but it's a slow process, right? You don't need to overwhelm a young mind, but you ease them into it, teach them it as if they don't have a chance to know anything else. That's just the knowledge that's being given to them. It's what's going in.
That's it.
It's a good program versus bad programming.
You're laying down the format on those little beings' mental hard drives. You got to put that format down and then start installing good software.
That's right.
It's all a computer analogy, ultimately.
All of those different possibilities of the G in the Freemason symbol.
Yes.
They all just still come back to the element of care.
That's right.
That's
what unites all of it. That's the highest. That's the highest energy that it is. It's the generative principle, the generator, right?
Yeah.
The thing that generates the experience is ultimately what we care about. You could call that the heart. You can call that love energy, right?
Right.
But ultimately, it's cosmic care. It's not just it's not romantic love, right? It's what do you actually care about creating in the world that you are living in? What do you care about leaving to future generations in the world that you are living in? The true care-based intelligence, heart intelligence, is going to guide and dictate that, right? It's not going to be dictated by just intellect, right? It's important to have sharp intellect, right?
Yes.
You have to be able to analyze things. You have to be able to come to correct conclusions, right?
A lot of self-defense comes from the intellect.
Of course, it has to. You have to have a sharp intellectual acumen if you want to really understand how things work and not be deceived.
Right.
But ultimately, if you don't truly care from a heart-based perspective of intelligence, you're not going to care about what's true or false. You're not going to care about what's right and wrong. You're not going to care about speaking the truth to others. You're not going to do the great work. You're not going to become a person who actually reaches out to others and attempts to help them in their moral education and upbringing, and that's what we're all ultimately here to do for each other and to support each other in that journey of learning and growth.
Yeah. Make course corrections along the way if necessary. And when we've been kind of growing up in this world full of lies and, deception and violence, when somebody comes along and they actually are enacting care toward another person, a lot of the times the person that's being shown such care, they get turned away from it. They think that they're being swindled or taken for. And that's unfortunate. That's very sad. Even when a genuine act of care comes along, a person could still think that they're being, that the wool's being pulled over their eyes on something.
So much deceit has happened to people and trauma that trust is a difficult issue for many people. You see people in the truth-telling community constantly being accused of, oh, that person's an agent or they're working for whoever, and it's like, I've met many people. Their intent is well placed and they're trying to do the best that they can. We're all human. We all have failings. No one is perfect. You have to take the good with the bad. You have to, take the really good gems that are put out there, take them, run with them, leave the rest, and stop. A lot of people have to just stop sowing discord because they can't imagine anybody can actually be a true good agent for goodness and true positive change, because they've been deceived so much. It's definitely a bad situation when people have given over to their trauma to such an extent where they lose the ability to, and I don't even want to use the word trust. Like, yeah, okay, we can say it's a matter of extend a little bit of trust to another individual to at least give them a chance, right? But it's they don't even want to hear what other people are saying. They just immediately jump to say, oh, they have to be on the inside. They can't have learned this on their own and want to, in a benevolent way, help other people to improve themselves and learn the truth for themselves. Absolutely, people can take that approach and be genuine good people like that without being some type of agents or whatever. It's like this jaded attitude. You see it so much in the so-called truth community, and it's not doing a service to humanity. It's not helping anybody. Those people's energy who constantly insist that, oh, everybody's an agent, their energy would be much better spent. Go out and put the truth out into the world yourself. Stop bothering to even talk about other people. You know what I mean? Just do the work yourself, and don't worry about what other people are doing. Let them do their thing. You do your thing, and if everybody took that approach, we'd see a lot more voices of truth out in the world, helping to change things more quickly than the snail's pace that it's going at,
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that people jump at each other's throats like that. It's something I see quite often, and it just always makes me shake my head, when it's like, no, we don't always have to agree. And most of the time, you know what, not even about the agreements, the agreement on a topic or whatever, but most of the time you just see people getting super personal about things and taking things out of context or misunderstanding things, and it just, relationships fall apart. And next thing you know, everybody's calling each other, controlled opposition or a shill or this or that, or all these pejoratives, that get flying around. It's just very unfortunate how quickly people lose sight of the ultimate goal is freedom, and we're all doing this together.
Exactly, and just getting on the same page about first principles. Let's start there, right?
Yeah.
Let's just make an effort to get people on the same page about objective morality. What actions constitute wrongdoing, and agree not to do those behaviors, and agree that those behaviors shouldn't be done by other people either, that no one gets special privileges to do wrongdoing to other people. This is general guiding first principles. That's how you build a solid foundation. All the elaborate detail work on the top floor, we can do that later. We can leave that until later, right? Let's get the principle. Don't actively initiate harm to other sentient beings first. That's why it's called a principle. It needs to come first. Principia in Latin means that which is first. Things which come first before anything else. Establish the principle, then go beyond the principle. But unless you establish the principle firmly in the mind first, don't go beyond that. Stay there until the principle is firmly established and understood. Then move beyond to other details. A lot of people don't get that philosophically. They want to go to the extreme example or the extreme exception to the rule. Don't start from there. Start with the rule itself, right? And I mean the rule from a natural law perspective, not obviously not a man's, not humanity's perspective. Start with the rule in nature, which is the principle, and then build on top of that as a foundation. And then you'll be building upon solid foundational ground, and you won't build a structure that will not stand on its own and be on solid ground to build upon.
What do you what kind of well, let me ask you this way. How often do you get responses to many of the things that you talk about? People, and I get this response, so I wanted to ask you what you think
I
about
get
how
so many emails every day. I can barely, I can't answer. I can't. It would be impossible. I would do nothing but answer emails. So
I'm sure back in your early days,
a lot of response, but and it's all largely positive. There's very few people, believe it or not, that try to contact me for negative interaction. Believe it or not. You would think it would be the opposite, but it's very few people. And even the people who have done that have later come back and apologized. That's been my experience. Believe it or not, my experience has been even people who have really been very assholish to me, for lack of a better adjective, okay, in email interactions. Many of them have later come back and said, I apologize. I could not understand what you were saying because of my lack of knowledge and my ignorance. I finally kept going further in this information because I kept looking it up and hearing about it from other people. Then they said things that brought me back to your work, and I listened more, and then I got it further, and they have apologized to me. That's almost an exceedingly rare thing generally in life. But I find that that's the kind of general response I've gotten because I've really stuck to my guns and continued to do the right thing, continue to do the great work and put the information out into the world and try to build a stronger community, a network, etc., of more people who are doing that to get it into the world in a greater way. And that's how natural law works. It brings you, if you're actively doing the things that you should be doing and you keep doing them, it brings you positive response rather than negative. Now, that's not going to work in it's not necessarily going to be the case for every single detail of your life, because people have free will and they can choose to screw with you in many different ways. So there are other things that do happen that it's just somebody who's, doing a negative thing. They don't care about what's right or true, and you're affected by it. We're all affected by each other's behaviors. Nobody's an island that stands on their own, separate from everything everybody else does. That's why we have to make improvements in the aggregate. It's a very dangerous proposition in many religions and in New Age philosophies, or ideologies, I should say, that they say, just worry about yourself. Just worry about how you are, and then just live for your bliss and happiness. That's a satanic way of living in the world. That's like, don't really care about anybody else. Just get your house in order. No, that's pure selfishness. That's not really long-term helping the world. Long-term helping the world is, yes, get your house in order first, but then help other people get their house in order. That's equilibrium. Okay. Equilibrium, which leads to a true better state of the world, is, yes, bring equilibrium and homeostasis to the extent that you can within your own house, so that you're in a position where you can help others get their house in order too. And it doesn't mean help other people at your own expense. See, there's a balance there that has to be struck, right? You have to get your work in order and be equipped to do what you need to do. And you can't let other people drag you down from that effort either. I feel I'm very focused in that, maintaining that state where I don't I try not to take on other people's problems to the extent that they will drag me down and I won't be able to get my work done. But where I am able, I will assist others. And I'm publicly doing that in the greatest way that I know how, through information. Because again, the old saying, you can help a person, procure their food for the day, and you feed them for a day. But if you showed them how to procure their food, they can procure it for a lifetime. Okay. And that's what I'm trying to do with my greater body of work. But if I'm in a position to help somebody in real life, I will do it to the extent that I am able, on the terms that I am able to do it on, without being dragged down into a quagmire of sorts, and then not be able to do what I need to do. So you need, as an individual, to maintain that type of balance and equilibrium when it comes to being altruistic toward others. It's like you can't only ever just do for others, because then you're not going to be doing what you need to do for yourself and your own work. And you can't be so selfish that you never attempt to improve other people's lot in life, especially by putting the truth out there into the world with the power of your voice and the power of media that you're capable of creating. And to that end, I try to teach people how to do that, right? Not just tell them to do it, right? I could scream at them to do it all day, but I also try to make the effort to say, here's the methods by which you do it. So it's the same thing with like the information, right? You could tell them the information, and you could, even get angry at them that, oh, you're not getting the information, but you can give them the tools to be able to procure and understand the information for themselves. And that's called autodidactic learning. That's called learning that is self-directed learning, right? So if you give people the tools to do that, they don't really need you after that, right? I want people not to need me. I don't want to be someone's guru. I don't want to be their crutch. I don't want to be who they rely upon to get this information. I want to show them how to do it, how to apply the trivium method to understand it, and then to act rightly upon it. And then it's off to the races, and you do it yourself. You don't need Mark Passio. I don't want anybody to need Mark Passio. I don't like clingy people. Okay. I want people who are driven, who have a lot of willpower, who want to learn, who are open-minded, and then who will take that information and they'll run with it, do it themselves, learn how to research themselves. Similarly, when I say put the information out there for others, speak the truth into the world, again, the theme of this whole broadcast, I want to show people how to do that. I don't just want to tell them to do it. I want to put a tool set in their hands for the actual method of learning how to make that media and how to put that out there publicly for others, as I have done, as you're doing, as many people on the One Great Work Network and in other places in our world are doing. So to that end, I teach these methods. If you want to see, the whole problem is most people don't know how to communicate in the modern world. I hear it all the time. I'm bad with tech. I don't like tech. I don't like computers. I don't want to learn it, right? I tried to learn it and I'm no good at it. And, it's all mental resistance. This is what I tell people. You've made a poor effort. A lot of people don't want to hear that. They want to be coddled, and they want to be told, oh, you've done it to the greatest extent of your ability. Most people haven't. Most people haven't truly, really tried. Most people have done a half-ass effort of trying, and then they give up, because that's what they were taught to do when they were young. Like, if they made a great effort to try to do something and they were failing at it, more people than not told them, let that go, drop it, forget about that. What are you worried about that for? Instead of saying, push through to completion, use your will to accomplish that if you want to get it done. See, I was never the kind of person that was a give-up artist, ever. I was a willful child. I was a willful teenager. I became a willful adult. People want to break down people's willpower because they don't like to see them using willpower to accomplish good things. And then they look at them, oh, you're better than me because I didn't use my willpower to do those things and to change and improve and grow, right? So that's why I tell people, more likely than not, you failed because you didn't really truly try hard enough in the right ways. And it's one of those points of contention that gets you into one of those areas where you're butting heads with people and it becomes almost belligerent. Yet it's true. Okay. And I try to explain to people who say things like this, you're looking at modern communication. You're looking at modern publishing. You're looking at modern information, not only gathering techniques, but dissemination techniques in all the wrong ways. And you're looking at the ways that you might be able to do those things and contribute to this effort in all the wrong ways. The people who in the programs that I have created and put forward, and of course I'm talking about my How to Become the True Media seminar, which is the enrollment is closed. We're starting in 2 days. We're starting on July 11th, our first class, which will be a 23 class seminar all the way through December of this year. I tell them the people who are going to go furthest in speaking the truth to others, the people who really want to get their voice out to the world, and the people who are going to do that the most effectively and the ones who are taking the course that I'm offering to try to get people to give them the tool set to understand how to do that effectively and efficiently. The ones that are going to do it, they're going to take the ball and run with it, are the ones who are going to change their perspective about technology and what you're capable of doing with it. Because the people who out there who are like Luddite type people, they're going to sit and continue to think all this technology is bad. Look at it, what it led to. Look at the control system that it led to. Look at how much tracking it led to and how much propaganda they're able to put out into the world. Yeah, do you know why? You aren't using the technology for the exact opposite, to put the truth out into the world, to publish what is true, to create media and put it before other people's attention and say, consider this, and you'll understand a little bit more about our world and where it's headed and what you can do to help take it in the opposite direction to something that is much better. You can't look at technology as a one-bladed knife or sword. It's not. It's two-edged. It's two blades, one on each side. One's the dark side, admittedly, but one's the light side that you can put the truth out into the world through that blade. Okay, but you have to learn the method. See, the enemy's hiring people with all the billions and trillions that they have to lie to people, to publish nonsense, to keep the worldview stuck in darkness and stuck in giving up and seeing things from a totally negative perspective. Technology can do the opposite if we use it the right way, right? It's just a tool like any other tool. It's not good or evil in and of itself. What we do with it makes it bring good or evil into the world, okay? Like any other tool. So what I tell people who are Luddites like that and who don't want to understand the modern method of communicating your voice is creating media like this and putting that out into the world publicly on this vast information resource that we have available unto us called the internet. That is how most people who are awake today have woken up. I ask people in my seminar, how did most people that you know who even consider themselves partially awake wake up? Did they wake up from letters being written from other knowledgeable people? Knowledgeable people, yeah, they went over here, they took their quill pen, right? They got their quill pen and they started forming a handwritten letter. They on parchment, they sealed it up, they put a stamp on it, they mailed it to you. Is that how people woke up who consider themselves, quote, awake today? No, right? Will some people tell you, well, they woke up from reading a lot of books, and some people will tell you that, right? But mostly older people will tell you that. Most people who consider themselves awake and aware today will say, I learned the bulk of the content that I learned by watching digital media that I downloaded or streamed from the internet. Let's be honest. Let's be realistic. That is the place where most people in the modern world got the information that they got to wake themselves up. They got it from media that was created and distributed through the internet. That is called modern communication and modern publishing techniques. Then ask yourself the question, how many human beings in the world actually know those techniques? How many people can do that, can create media and then publish it onto the internet? And then ask yourself why we're losing the spiritual battle that we are in. The people who are actually getting the most digital content created and onto the internet for most people's eyes and ears to see are the dark side, because they have billions at their disposal. Most people want to just work for a paycheck, and they'll go and do their bidding, follow their orders, and publish whatever content they want them to publish, and say whatever ridiculous lies and propaganda they want said and put out to other people. Unless we counteract those narratives with truthfulness, with our own voice and our own creations of media that we put on the information resource called the internet, do not expect the dynamic to change in the long term. Once again, if you want the room cleaned, you gotta assess how dirty the room is. You gotta get the cleaning supplies together. Then you gotta actually do the work. If you want the information to reach people's eyes and ears so that the world changes from a moral perspective, then you have to learn the truth of the matter about what's really going on and the truth regarding morality. Then you have to create the media that people need to see and hear, and then you need to publish it. Otherwise, the job doesn't get done. It's not an automated process. We are the voice of the truth, and we have to speak the truth into the universe, because that is how true change and positive change actually is driven in our world, and that's how true change manifests in our world.
So what you're saying is that having a podcast isn't a waste of time. Having a podcast when you're speaking about objective morality, when you're speaking about, speaking the truth and trying to influence change through through technology like this, is not a waste of time. It's not a fruitless effort. If you
reach one human being and change them, you haven't wasted your time. I often get really negative and dark and think that my work's been a waste of time, but it hasn't for the people that it's changed. I want it to happen faster, right? I don't want immediate gratification, but I want to see progress, right? I want to see snowballing progress. Okay. I don't want to just see something that stays like this, or maybe just goes like this. I want to see things going like this, where I can see. I'm not one of these people that says don't expect change to happen in your lifetime. No, I call that playing to lose, right? I'm not playing to lose. I'm playing to win. I'm playing that I want to be such an influence. I want to be such an inspiration. I want to be so powerful in the speaking of the truth out into the world that I helped to inspire other people to change, that we make the change go exponential, not even linear. Okay? If I don't work for that goal hard enough to try to inspire that goal, then I'm playing to lose. Right? And you can't just get down just because it's not happening as fast as you want. I fall victim to that sometimes, right? Admittedly. You got to keep going. You got to keep pressing forward. You can't ever give up. If you give up, you're just admitting defeat. You're just going to let evil run amok. You're going to let the boulder crush you, right? Even if it seems hopeless, the correct thing to do is push forward. Use your willpower to push forward, because other people will see that and take inspiration from it. You don't know who you're influencing. You might influence also somebody who is in a great position to create change single-handedly. Who knows? Who knows who eventually listens to the voice, the information that we're putting out through the power of our voice, and could perhaps greatly influence all of society. We don't really truly know that long term into the future. And I try to remind myself of that, although I can feel very depressed and very despondent about it some days. I am just as human as anybody else with the same emotions, and when I see where some minds are at, I mean, it's deplorable. And it is
Yeah.
very, it can be depressing in many instances if you don't try to maintain a tempered view about it and not fall into too negative of a worldview. And again, that's not saying don't go in the other direction and start seeing the world through rose-colored glasses either. You got to maintain that honest, realistic perspective. It could be challenging to do that. I think that's what helps me just stay on point and keep moving forward, is that I do not tread either one of those perspectives, the rose-colored glasses or the total doom. They're going to take you off the path. The middle path is the way, which is the realistic perspective, and keep pushing forward and never give up.
Amen, man. That was awesome. Thank you for saying that. A little bit of a change of pace.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you just straight up, I think I already know the answer, so it might be a rhetorical question. Is there any shape that government could ever take where it is legitimate, where it is a net positive?
No, because the very definition of government is commands of compliance, right? So I can't give people commands of compliance to even do the right thing, right? I can tell them this is the right thing to do. I can't command other people's behavior. Government isn't suggestion. Government is authority, right? Without the concept of authority to command, there's no such thing as government. That's its inherent characteristic that defines it, right? So we have words for a reason. They're defined. So to define means you're taking it out of the sphere of the infinite and you're making it mean limited things, right? So the answer to that question is we have to truly define what government is. And I feel I have done that in my work.
Yeah.
Pretty much ad infinitum, right?
Yeah.
But you can, if you want a good lengthy definition of what government truly is, I'd recommend Larkin Rose's book, The Most Dangerous Superstition. Larkin is, of course, on the One Great Work Network, a great modern philosopher. And he went to painstaking effort to truly philosophically define what government actually is and the characteristics that it constitutes. Other writers throughout history have done this, philosophers as well, Lysander Spooner, Murray Rothbard has done a pretty good job of that, even Ron Paul in the modern day. And Paul still is, allegedly a limited government guy. I think, in his public life he is. In his private life, I think he's more of an anarchist. He's trying to educate people to the evil of government. But that aside, there is a correct definition of what government actually is in our world. Now, if you're only talking about internal government, meaning I control my own mind, my thoughts, emotions, and actions, that's my government of myself, right? I am governing, meaning I'm controlling my own behaviors. That's not what we're talking about as quote unquote government in the world, meaning externalized government as an institutional body within humanity. No, there is no possibility that that can ever be good, because that operates according to force, whether it is in the right or not. So if it operates according to force in the right, that's a natural right of defense and is something that everybody has the right to anyway. If it operates according to force when it's not in the right, that's called violence, and no one has that right ever, and it cannot be delegated to any group of people and called authority or government, and it becomes magically a moral right. So those who believe that government can become something that is good or used to serve humanity have to get down to the actual correct definition of what the institutional body in the world called government actually is and does, and what its definitive earthly characteristics are. And if we are honest about those things, then we will come to the moral conclusion that it is always operating according to violence and according to coercion. And again, that can never become a right, no matter how many people believe it to be so, or people want to advocate or delegate that quote unquote right, which isn't really a right, it's a wrongdoing, to someone else. Again, the main thing to keep in mind is attribute the behavior to yourself. That's it. That's the only operating principle you need to do. That takes care of everything philosophically / morally. Okay? If you just look at the behavior that is being advocated in the institutional body of government, okay, and then say, do I have the right to do this to another being? And be honest, you will find that government has no right to exist. It does nothing that is ultimately truly good for humanity. Okay? And people want to say, oh, we need policing, right? Policing shows up after the act to try to then go find the person that did it and punish them, instead of moral education so that the wrongdoing behavior doesn't happen in the first place. That's called playing to lose. Every cop in the history of humanity, since the concept of policing and military has existed, are playing to lose. They're not truly moral individuals, obviously. They're order followers, right? And if they stop following orders, they'd be fired from their institution. And they really tried to follow conscience, they would be fired from their institution, okay? But the whole idea is, in general, every person who has misplaced the intent to try to help humanity and placed it in the basket of, we're going to control people and punish them for wrongdoing, you got it wrong from an axiomatic level. You got it flawed from the axiomatic level. You didn't attack the problem correctly to begin with. That's why they're largely low IQ individuals. And I'm not going to say IQ is the big measure of holistic human intelligence, okay? But they don't understand systems level thinking. They don't understand wider perspective dynamics of how whole systems operate as one huge overarching structure. They're very myopic as beings who are trying to use their limited brain power to see a larger picture. Unbelievably myopic. And they've misplaced their intent to say, I want a better future for humanity and I want people not to do bad things to each other. And they've put that in the absolutely flawed and incorrect axiom of control is the answer. You're completely incorrect. Only education can ever be the answer. And if education toward the moral is refused by the body of humanity, the right of self-defense up to war still exists within each individual, up to any level of deadly force, including massive war, still exists and can be done, can be enacted as a human right. This is what every cop does not understand. This is what every soldier does not understand. This is what every person in the institute of any aspect of government that has ever existed still does not completely philosophically understand. You have to understand what rights are in the apophatic sense, meaning what you do not have the right to do or participate in or condone. And you also have to understand it in the cataphatic or positive sense of when something is done that infringes upon or attempts to destroy your right, what behaviors do you have the right to respond with? And that's a very, very difficult pill to swallow for most human beings, because we want to rationalize, we want to euphemize, we want to justify all of our incorrect and morally wrong thinking and behaviors. And when we're called on that bullshit, then people get defensive and go on the attack against the person who is speaking the truth. Again, the biblical allegory, right? Again, I talk about biblical allegory as much as I talk about occult symbolism sometimes. It doesn't mean I believe in religion. It means that I understand the allegorical principle that is attempting to be communicated through the religious tradition. It's not the same as accepting it as a religion or believing in it from a historistic aspect, okay? but it teaches a valuable moral lesson. In the story, the allegorical story of Jesus in the New Testament, when he is being crucified by the Roman authorities, and Pilate is saying, I'm washing my hands of this individual. What do you want done with him? Or who do you want me to release between the barbaric murderer and rapist Barabbas, or a person who simply said, we shouldn't take the approaches that we've taken in humanity, and we should try not to do violence to each other and love each other? Jesus. Who do you want released? And in the biblical allegory, they say in the New Testament, the writers of the New Testament say, the crowd cried out with one voice, all in unison, everyone in complete agreement. Release Barabbas. We want him in the body of humanity, and we want this other man who tried to explain there's a better way of living, there's a better way of thinking, there's a better way of treating each other, murdered. That's where humanity is at. That's where humanity has not changed an iota since those biblical allegorical stories were written down. It still wants to murder the truth and those who are speaking it. And guess what? Even in light of that, especially in light of that, in spite of that, that's where we need to power forward. That's where we need to push through with unimaginable resolve. In spite of that attitude, we still should not give up and should speak the truth, not even because we will, quote, win, we will come out on top, we will be the victors, the world will come out the way we want it to. Those all could be ancillary reasons. But the reason the truth has to be spoken into the universe is for one reason and one reason only. Simply because it is the morally right thing to do. And that defines who we are as individuals. Nothing else. Nothing else defines who an individual is except for the behaviors that they take in a time where violence and immorality are the rule. That's how you truly test your mettle. That's how you truly show the entire universe what you're made of. And that's the attitude we have to take if we're going to turn this thing around even a little bit.
I've been saying it a lot lately. I've been saying it a lot that we need to start retuning, adjusting our perspective, and to start doing the right thing over what is easy.
That's right.
Because that's how we're going to get out of this mess. Because
not
that's what got us.
easy.
That's what got us into this mess.
That's
was
right.
taking the easy road.
Exactly.
Getting out of it, it's going to take taking the high road, the right road. And that's the only solution.
Doing what is right is not what's easy. It's very easy to do what's wrong. You just sit back and do nothing.
Yeah.
It's real simple.
Exactly. You let other
Takes
people
no
do
effort.
things and you go,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, no, I don't want to get my hands dirty. You go ahead and do it. I'll
May create hardship for ourselves. And guess what? That we have to accept that burden. That's called accepting that cross and carrying it and going forward anyway. Even if you know it's going to lead to hardship. That's the cost of doing the right thing when the majority of humanity refuses to help and do that right thing. It doesn't matter. You got to say, that's their karma. They're going to do what they're going to do. And then they're going to be held responsible for what they did. Make no mistake about that. See, I sleep unbelievably well at night. Unbelievably well, like comatose sleep, okay? Where I almost cannot believe the depth of sleep because I know the universe is ruled by justice. Now, during the day, I sometimes get upset about what's going on and get a little anxious, right? Because I'm intellectually thinking about it. But at the true subconscious and soul level, right? There's inner peace because I know I did the right thing for the right reasons and my care was in the right place and then I did the right behaviors in the world. So when I am judged according to the responsibility that I took or didn't take, I'm going to be okay. I have no problem with it. I don't feel any anxiety over that. Right? The people who are going to may not even feel anxiety over it, but the ones who are going to find out at some later point, because this universe is governed by justice. Whether anybody believes that it is not, that is the law of this entire place. We're in a free will zone. This is a free will based universe, but it is also governed by natural law, which is true cosmic justice. Okay. And each individual, according to what they did and did not do, will be held responsible for those behaviors. And guess what? That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. That is exactly how the universe should function. The universe is functioning perfectly. It's us as a body, as a species, that's really screwed up. But it's not a problem with the universe. The universe is a wonderfully constructed machine of justice conservation. It conserves justice. That's what the universe does. It helps us to learn and grow. It provides the whetstone that we can sharpen our blade against, and come to an understanding of what is true, what is right, what is good, and how to create those things that we say we want for ourselves, or how to ignore those laws and get the default condition of entropy and chaos. So again, that's great news, right?
Yeah.
That means, who's it up to? It ain't up to anybody else. It's up to us. We can change it. We just have to work hard to do it. It's not easy. It's going to be hard work. That's why the effort is called the one great work. It's not called the party, the whatever dance party, the
one great rave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not called the one fun rave.
Right.
Yeah. Trying to think of the
what?
music that is played, dubstep. It's not the
Right.
one big dubstep rave. You know what I mean? Yeah, right. It's the one great work. Okay.
But on the bright side, when that work is done, if that work ever really truly gets done, which it never is done because it's constant, you're constantly doing that work. The labore et constantia.
That's right.
Hard work and persistence.
That's right.
Through persistence of hard work. So
there'll always be other challenges,
but the feeling,
over the horizon. Yes.
The feeling of doing it, of knowing the truth of that, and knowing that the truth of it, of the matter, and doing the right thing is so much better.
I can't say I would change it for anything. Even whatever hardships and suffering it caused, I still wouldn't change it, because what are you going to do? Go back to being totally ignorant? Go back to acting satanically? Go back to not caring? No
Right.
way. I would never trade the change that happened to me at a fundamental soul level for anything.
No way.
Regardless of what hardship it brings or what hardship it means in 3D reality for me.
Same here. I have a couple more questions. I know
Sure.
we're approaching time, but I have a couple more questions. One of them is very important.
Mhm.
It says it on my shirt. You say it every week that you broadcast. Government is slavery. Would you care for people that aren't very familiar with your work to elaborate on that as much as you can? And that's about it. I have a couple more things that I'd like to hear from you about after that.
Sure. Well, again, we talked about the concept that government isn't suggestions, right? Government isn't like, beneficent guidelines that we think you should live by. So we'll publish these and say, if you want to take these as words of wisdom, you're free to do so. If you don't, you're free to do so, right? It is authority driven and authority based, if we're being honest, right? So, people will get this incorrect. And okay, if they don't want to truly analyze the definitions of words, then they're going to get other things incorrect after that. It's like the principle of being correct compounds itself as you go. Meaning, if you build upon a fundamental flawed axiom at the foundational level, then you have inconsistencies in the foundation. Then if you try to build something on top of that, then, this is going to be not working right now, and your structure is unsound. Okay. That's why you have to get the axiomatic principle correct definitively. Right. So is government guiding suggestions, or is government authority-based and authority-driven? I think if anybody's being honest with themselves, they certainly subconsciously realize it. And if they're really being honest and saying it honestly, they'll become conscious at a conscious level. They'll become aware of this at a conscious level, that it is making a claim of authority upon another is the fundamental nature of government, of the human institution of government. Again, understand, we are not talking about self-governance. We're not talking about controlling our own thoughts, emotions, and actions internally, inwardly. That's called self-government, self-governance. That's a positive thing. We all want that. That's called truly exercising our sovereignty to control our own thoughts, emotions, and actions. And we want that. That's positive. That creates positive manifestations and results in the world. We are talking here about the institutional body known as man's law and man's government that is instituted in every country and every municipality and locality on this planet. That is authority-based. Ask any person, is government something that you have the choice to comply with or not, according to them, according to the people who lay down laws, right? Is it participatory in the sense that it is voluntary? And someone can say, I agree with all of this, I'm going to take part in it. If someone says, I don't agree with all of this, I don't want to take part in it, are they permitted to walk away and do that and not do that? Or is it forced upon them? If it is forced upon them, then that is the very nature of authority. Authority says, I'm in charge and you don't have the free will to say no. That's what authority is. That's the definition of what someone who is claiming authority over others actually is, if we're being honest with ourselves. Again, we can bullshit ourselves ad infinitum and say, no, that's not what authority is, right? And we're not talking about authority in the sense that you're skilled at something. Someone could look at me as an authority in computing because I'm skilled at it. Okay, that's not the kind of, that's another definition of the connotative word that we use authority for, meaning someone who is in a position of being very skilled and being in a position to teach other people this skill or trade or craft. Hence, they're an authority in that field. Not the definition we're talking about. Understand the actual definition that we're talking about is someone who is claiming the right to command other people to bring their actions into compliance with their will. Okay, the individual issuing the commands will. That is taking away, that is the removal of someone else's free will rights not to participate in something. Therefore, the very underlying axiomatic definition and characteristic of government is coercion and violence. And if one's free will, we started the show talking about this, if one's free will to behave in the way that they wish is removed from someone who has not initiated harm to another sentient being, that is the definition, the literal definition of making a claim of ownership upon their person, their body. And that is called slavery. That is the definition of slavery. It is I'm going to go so far as to say that is not only a philosophically sound argument, that is a philosophically perfect argument with no chips in it anywhere. It's made of solid titanium, 10 billion miles thick. No one's going through that logic unless they're not honest with themselves. They have to be forming a euphemization of the characteristics of what we're attempting to define philosophically for whatever reasons that they want to. Again, people do that for a billion different reasons. Part of it may be that they may not want to look at the horror of the situation they're embedded in and recognize that they're being held under the conditions of slavery themselves. And many people don't want to acknowledge that and admit that to themselves. And, again, that's the second axiomatic principle and or quote dictate of initiation into truth and into hidden knowledge or occultism, stop dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
You got to tell yourself the truth about the conditions that you're in and you're surrounded by. You can't put on the rose-colored glasses and say, I'm not enslaved. You got to be honest about the actual condition that you are embedded within, no matter how horrifying that situation is. And here's how horrifying and realistic. This is the actual condition. We are living on a huge farm. This is one big farm. It's one big plantation with different, quote, gates or fences set up. Those are called countries, right? And there's human farmers in all of these different regions, and we're just living on one big farm.
Yeah.
That's what the human condition is. Animals living on a farm. George Orwell was trying to tell people this with his book Animal Farm. Not us. It's not about animals. It's about human beings.
Yeah. Even Pink Floyd's album Animals back in the 70s.
And we have to be inwardly strong, built up inside of our internal constitutions, so strong-willed that we accept that's what it is, but we don't accept the condition. We accept that's the reality. That's the truth currently, but never accept that that condition is moral, and never accept that it will be here eternally, and never accept that it shouldn't be changed. Accept that it will be changed. That's what you should accept. Start the sentence that I will change this. I tell people I'm not looking for an escape. I don't want to leave this reality. I don't want to go on to another level of existence. I'm staying right here, and I'm going to destroy this system. If it takes 1 quadrillion lifetimes, I'm here to destroy what isn't true or good. And if reincarnation is the way things work, sign me up for eternity on Earth. I'm not interested in leaving until the human condition is no longer slavery. And I'll hold the door and be the last one out. I'll hold the door for everybody else and be the last one out if that's what it takes and that's what I have to do. Now, defeat that will. Come up against that will and try to defeat it. Good luck.
Good luck.
Because the will isn't from the physical being Mark Passio. See, that's what people don't understand. It's not from the flesh. That willpower doesn't come from the physical.
It comes from the spirit.
That's it. That's it. The flesh is simply the antenna to receive that will, and then step into the slipstream of doing what that will ultimately wants to accomplish here.
The vessel of action.
That's it.
Exactly. I have a fun question to ask you. Ever since your conversation with Bill Church that you did toward the end of last season, I've been wondering, what would your walk-on music be if you were in the WWE?
I love it. That's a good one. Maybe the Final Countdown. That's a pretty good one.
Good.
I don't know. Maybe a Founder song. Maybe Kill the Masters. that would shake people up.
All right.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, mine would be.
I probably could have done that when I was younger. If I I was pretty athletic and probably could have been a good kayfabe actor. And I've always liked pro wrestling. Always went to the matches when I was young, with my dad and other family members, and I still watch it for entertainment. So I'll say, let me go with the Final Countdown.
That's a good answer. I just imagine you coming down the ramp like the fireworks going off.
I think Bryan Danielson did that. I think he entered to Final Countdown in an independent promotion, if I recall correctly. So it probably has already been done.
Well, it doesn't mean that you can't do it too.
Right.
Who would be your ultimate matchup?
Let's see. How about Kenny Omega versus AJ Styles?
All right, all right. I'm from a little bit of the newer generation. You know, I went to some matches when I was a young boy as well. I saw some guys like John Cena and like Rey Mysterio on
Yeah.
there. Mankind at one
Attitude Era.
point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you know,
Stuff.
I've always liked it. I don't really watch it very much, but it's always been just silly to me, and it was
Yeah,
cool. You know?
it is definitely silly entertainment. You know, that's my
Yeah.
guilty pleasure, but it can show you how acting works in the real world too. You know, the whole political structure is a big kayfabe structure in general. You know,
Hmm.
it shows you how people are easily manipulated and swayed. You know, one thing happens and the villain becomes the good guy, and vice versa. You know,
Yep.
so shows you how mental influencing and manipulation works in many ways. So.
One thing happens, and next thing you know, chairs are being thrown. It's just the real world, you know. That's just how it goes. The next thing I really want to get in before we call it a night
Mhm.
was I think I heard you talking about you teased something, and it made me want to ask you what is next for you. You have on air set goals, and if I'm recalling correctly, you have accomplished and met each and every single one of the goals that you have set on air.
Some have
You
taken longer than I've originally wanted to, but I
you have
generally keep
accomplished them
going,
nonetheless.
yeah, with what I say I want to do. One of the things I really want to do is, I'm going to be participating in these two upcoming conferences this fall online, and I'll be putting out presentations on de facto Satanism and psyops in each of them, um, one in each one, obviously. But there's a long form presentation that I've been researching and slowly putting together, and it's not nearly finished, but I would like to finish it when I have more time to focus entirely on it, which has been difficult with all of my other work, which is called The Dark Occult Origins of um, Nazism and Communism. And I mean, I lay out some deep connections there where I'm talking about how occultists influenced both of these traditions, where we hear a lot about occultism and Nazism, but very little about occultism and communism.
Mm,
We also hear a lot about the evils of Nazism, which it is truly evil and is a deplorable ideology, always has been. And even the forms of neo-Nazism that exist in the world are truly evil. But we hear so much about that. We hear very little about the evils of communism and how many deaths it has caused in the modern world. You look at democide figures, and communism has killed even more people than Nazism in the last 100, 120 years, etc. People have to really understand that these are really both Satanism in disguise. One is wearing a glove on the left hand and one is wearing a glove on the right hand, and you remove them both and it's hooves. You know what I mean? It's
mm,
red skin and hooves. You know, obviously that's a symbolic interpretation. I don't really believe in that form of, quote, the Christian devil, but this is what communism really is. It's communism and Nazism are Satanism in disguise as two different, seemingly opposing ideologies that are two flip sides of the same coin. They're two wings of the same bird. Um, you know, we see left wing and right wing. The totalitarian extremes are communism and Nazism, but then you go under the surface, and those are just two masks of Satanism under the hood. And that's what I'm trying to expose. I'm trying to explain that these are all the same ideology underneath, and it's all dark occultism. It's all Satanism. And I have um, a long form presentation slash seminar that is proof of this. And I'm going to eventually unleash that. And I don't want to say it's definitely going to come this year, because it may take longer than that. I've done a lot of ravenous research on it. I have to formalize all that and make uh, aesthetically pleasing slides for the whole thing. And
mm.
that's where I'm at, where I have in general, an outline and what I want to accomplish during the whole thing. But to formalize the slides still has to be done. And that's going to take a few months minimum. I'm going to say at least 6 to 8 months. So for a presentation of this scope, which is probably going to be at least 8 hours long, maybe 9 hours. So I don't want to give a timeline on it, but I will put it out at some point. It's just it's a colossal amount of work. I also want to reach out to some other activists in the area and perhaps in the near future start doing in-person natural law seminars again. I haven't done that for many years, and I'd like to see what kind of response I get from the general community here in the general Philadelphia vicinity, because I got some good response the first time I did it, although it was small. I mean, there was like 10 students. I'm hoping maybe I could find a vicinity to deliver a multi-week seminar and maybe put at least 50 students in the class, if not more. But we'll see. That's another project that I'm maybe looking at in the near-term future.
That's great, man. It's uplifting to hear that you have plans for the future. It really is.
I'm not going to stop. I may take hiatuses from here and there to just preserve my well-being and health, but I will not stop.
No,
that I can assure everyone.
Can't stop. It can't be stopped. Last question. It's a short one, and then we can say our goodbyes.
Sure.
Are you Jeremy Locke?
I am not.
Okay.
No. And I would tell people if I was. A lot of people have asked me that and think that is the case. No. He's a brilliant modern philosopher. Everyone should read End of All Evil. If you are in any way confused about the human condition or the reality of what government is, what authority is, I highly recommend the book, The End of All Evil. It's probably one of the best, if not the best, philosophical books written in the modern era. You can certainly find a digital copy. If you find a physical copy, you're very lucky at this point because it only had one physical printing and was never reprinted. But I am not Jeremy Locke. I would tell people if I was, I'd be proud of that work and I would make it public that I was him, but I am not. I would love to meet him in person. I would love to know who it is. And he probably chooses, sees fit to choose not to do that, not to become a public figure, and that's his right. But he's definitely not me, but he's got my mad respect. I can tell you that because that work is a work of brilliant truth and brilliant moral philosophy, and everyone should know it and everyone should read it.
Well, thank you for that. I saw it on a chat room.
So odd that you would even mention that book today of all days. I picked it up in my house earlier today. And was like, yeah, I got a physical copy of this. This is so awesome that I actually own a physical copy of this thing. And, then you mention it today. Good synchronicity there.
Every time I go to a flea market, every time I go to an antique shop or a consignment store or a bookstore where they sell used books, I always go through, I ask,
look for that one.
I look for it because the chances of finding a copy of it for like $20 in a stack in a shop like that, they don't know what they have.
If people want to read it, you can go to libgen.is, libgen.is. You could find just about any book there, and just type End of All Evil, Jeremy Locke, Locke, and you'll be able to download it from there.
Yep.
Great resource.
You can go to freeyourmindne.com, go, and I think I have it up on the PDF. There's like a literature page I set up. I think I have a PDF of it that you can download there as well. Take the search right out of it for you. So last but not least, Mark, thank you for your time tonight.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it, man. It was great to meet you. Great to finally have a face to face, even though it's through this, call. It's still, to me, very, very awesome that we got to meet. On behalf of Joe Murray and myself, thank you so much for participating in the Shattering the Illusion conference.
Absolutely.
It's going to be great, and you're contributing to that very awesomely. Which presentation is it going to be, though? We want to know. We want to know, Mark. Shattering
the Illusion. I think I'm going to do psyops there. I'll do the de facto Satanism at Funnel 2, and I think I'll do psyops at Shattering the Illusion.
Excellent. Well, that's about it, man. Thanks. Thank you. I can't say it enough.
James, thank you. Great interview. Great questions. Best of luck continuing your show. Thank you for doing the great work and being part of the One Great Work Network. Awesome job here today, and thank you for having me.
The pleasure is all mine. I'll see you in class on Monday.
Absolutely.
All
Take
right.
care, everyone.